a quick note before I start the video. I've already recorded this video, but I forgot to say, this video is for everyone. So if you're in the Jade group or the Indigo group or the Amber group, you can watch this video because you're just going to be listening most of the time. At the very end, there's going to be a task that is just for anybody who's in the who's not in a colour group. So if you're in the Jade or the Indigo or the Amber group, you don't need to do the task at the end of the video. Everybody else, make sure you watch all the way to the end. Right at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you the LI and the task for the day. But first, just listen, because we've got a fun section coming up. Good morning, Year 3! Today is a very exciting lesson, because instead of just me talking at you, explaining things, doing exercises, you just get to sit back, relax and listen to some of the amazing stories that some pupils in Year 3 have written. That's right, today is the Year 3 showcase of the writing projects that we did last week based on stories where everyone wrote about a character who had special powers. We planned out these stories, tried to structure them with a beginning, middle and end, and then while we were writing we were trying to focus on different skills that make story writing really interesting. I have to say that every single story that I received, I thoroughly enjoyed reading. Year 3, you are very talented at story writing, and I hope that you keep practicing because some of you, I'm sure, have the ability to be authors one day. I couldn't actually choose which stories, I found it so hard to choose which stories I wanted to read out because so many of them were brilliant. However, I can only make one video about these stories and I don't want it to be too long, so I couldn't read every single person's. If I don't read your story, please don't be sad. That doesn't mean that I didn't like it. It just means that maybe somebody else's story was a bit similar to yours or that I ran out of time. All of you should have received feedback from me on your story, so you'll know all the things that I liked about your story and you'll know that I've been really impressed with your work. In order to make it fair, I've chosen 2 people from each Year 3 class to share their story. I tried to pick stories that were quite different from each other so you can see how with story writing you can be creative, you can use your own writing style and have your own ideas. The one thing that all these stories have in common is that they have some really good examples of description, powerful language. They are really exciting to read and the story structure is very clear, so I know what's happening in the beginning, I know what's happening in the middle, I know what's happening in the end, and it all connects together. So listen out in these stories, see if you can hear how they're using adjectives, expanded noun phrases, adverbs, verbs, direct speech. See if you can hear how all of these students are doing it really well, and maybe you might even find something that you can magpie for your next bit of writing. Without further ado, we're going to listen to all of these stories, and then at the end of the lesson there is a small task that I want you to do. So make sure you watch this video all the way to the end and then do the task that's at the very end of the video. You watch this video by Peter. 2 months before, Nottingham, England. Thursday, very late evening, outside the window. The full moon was shining. Derek Danbar, a 15-year-old teenager, was doing some push-ups like usual. He wanted to be fit, so he exercised every day. Derek was about to finish his exercise when suddenly he heard a strange noise from behind the window. He lived very close to Nottingham Forest, so strange noises weren't weird to him. But this time it was really something different. Derek was supposed to be in bed in 30 minutes, but he thought that before he goes to bed, he could quickly check what that was. Derek got dressed quickly in almost a second and he was ready to go. When he reached the forest, it was extremely dark everywhere and somehow very strangely empty. When suddenly a strange creature started chasing him. He really tried, but he couldn't escape. He stumbled and felt terrible pain at the same moment, then he fainted. The next morning, he woke up in his bed and he saw a strange wound on his hip. Derek couldn't believe it, but he realised that he was bitten by a werewolf. Everything was normal and Derek healed up. He thought that maybe he was bitten by an ordinary wolf until the full moon came. Derek was nervous all day, but he didn't know why. When the night came, he felt that something was happening to him. There was a full moon when he suddenly turned into a werewolf. His nails started to grow and he was covered by fur. His eyes started to glow yellow and his teeth were razor sharp. Somehow, Derek found himself in a forest. Despite everything, he knew he was a good werewolf. He didn't want to hurt any innocent animal and he didn't want to hurt any human. Derek somehow knew that he must hide from everyone. When he suddenly heard strange voices from far away, he saw an arrow fly past him. He was incredibly fast with his power, so he managed to hide. They were werewolf hunters. Fortunately, the hunters didn't know that was Derek, and he reached his home safely. Derek finally was able to control his werewolf powers. He found out from a friend who belonged to the hunters group. He really explained everything to them. He told them that he for sure won't hurt anyone. From that moment, he became a friend of a group of hunters. Derek took care of the whole city so that nothing would happen there. Everyone lived happily ever after. The end. So this is Alana's story. One blazing hot day, the bright, hot yellow sun was out in the clear blue sky. A young girl with short, whitey blonde hair with sky blue eyes. Her name was Madison. She is 8 years old, and she has two siblings that are twins called Jessica and Josh. Jessica and Josh are 3 years old. She lives with her daddy and her siblings in a little tiny house down by a beautiful flowing river. Madison does a lot of fishing there because she gets the fish for their food because they don't have a lot of money. The next day, Madison and her siblings went down to the river to catch some fish for dinner. Madison told Jessica and Josh to be careful and not to play near the edge of the river in case they fell in. Madison got the rod ready and started fishing. She waited and waited to catch a fish. She was feeling really bored. Then suddenly, the rod pulled her. She tried really hard to pull the rod back, but it was just too heavy. She pulled and pulled. She even got Jessica and Josh to help pull, but they couldn't pull it. The twins let go and Madison pulled again, and then splash! Madison fell in the water. She had been pushed under the water. She was feeling really scared, worried and sick. She couldn't swim and was finding it hard to breathe. Madison could hear the twins calling her, but she couldn't shout back. Madison was looking around at the beautiful coloured fish and plants. Then Madison was able to breathe. The fish were swimming around her. The twins' voice shouted, "Help, help, someone please." But no one came. She desperately tried to make it to the top, but it was too hard. Madison felt really sad and started to cry. She felt a fish tickle her feet. It was a beautiful, bright fish who had so many different coloured scales it looked like a rainbow fish. He pushed Madison forward to the plants, and in there was a sparkly blue gem. The rainbow fish took the gem and gave it to Madison. Madison held the gem in her hand and it glistened. She thought she was seeing things. All of a sudden, the rainbow fish said, "This gem will give you magical ice powers. All you need to say is ice, and what you need with it." And the fish swam away. Madison was really confused. How could a gem give me powers? She asked herself. She gave it a try and said, "Ice," and the gem glistened and glistened. But what do I need to get out of here, she thought. And she thought. Then she came up with ice steps. That's it. And she asked again, "I wish for ice steps." And the gem glistened and glistened into the air and it went poof. Madison couldn't believe her eyes. There were ice steps going to the top of the river. She slowly and carefully started to climb the ice stairs, and finally she reached the top. Madison was now at the riverside where Jessica and Josh were waiting for her. They pulled her out. Madison told her siblings about the rainbow fish and the gem that gave her magical power. "We don't believe you," they said. "Oh, really?" said Madison. Madison held out the gem and said, "Ice the water." The gem glistened and went up in the air and poof, the river was frozen. The siblings' mouths dropped in shock. "See, I told you," Madison said. We will never have to worry about catching fish for dinner again, said Madison excitedly. Then Madison's dad turned up. Dad, guess what? Shouted Madison. And she sat down and told her dad all about her adventure. The end. Weather Girl to the Rescue by Maria. Once there lived a little girl called Scarlet. She was only 9 years old. One day she decided to hang out at the beach, so she sat there reading her favourite book, Supergirl Saves the Day. She loved that book. But a part of that book was scary, and guess what? She felt scared too. Suddenly there was a really loud thunder. She stopped and said, What just happened? There was also a sad part, so she started to cry. Just then it started to rain. What on earth is going on? Scarlet shouted. Oh, and there was also a romantic part, so she felt really shy and nervous. So up in the sky there was a pink cloud that was shaped like a big heart. That is it! I have powers, she said in excitement. Just then, the waves started splashing and sharks were coming out of it. Oh my gosh, I got to go and save the day. So she went back home and transformed to Weather Girl. She could control the weather depending on her feelings. Isn't that so cool? Well, after her mum heard a noise when Scarlet just finished changing, so she had to jump out of the window. Mwahaha! This city will soon be Shark City, shouted Sir Shark. No, it will not, shouted Weather Girl as she landed on her feet. Oh, really? Said Sir Shark as he looked at his fingers. Then how about this? He shouted as a really big shark army was marching out of the water. Oh, it's on, Weather Girl shouted. Not till I do this, shouted Sir Shark as he picked up a building. This one! Mwahaha! He giggled as he held up a woman. Hold on, this wasn't just any woman. This was the Weather Girl's mother. Help me! She screamed in horror. Oh no, I got to go save Mum, said Weather Girl in her head. Sir Shark quickly teleported, but luckily Weather Girl put a tracker on him. She got an iPhone with her because that device is connected to the tracker, so she could teleport to him in secret. And so she did. There she could see thousands of people tied up to chairs with tape on their mouth, and with her spy binoculars she could see her very own mother tied up too. Hands up, Sir Shark, she shouted. No, I will not. I will not follow your order. Hands up, Sir Shark. No, I will not ever follow that, he shouted as his face turned red. Then here we go. Remember, do not blame me after this, Weather Girl said calmly. Well, what? He asked. This, she answered. Weather Girl was holding her hands tightly and repeated the words Sir Shark said to her, which made her so angry that lightning came out of her eyes, shooting him so much that he turned to dust. Once she rescued everyone, she became famous for being the first hero that has ever beaten Sir Shark, the most powerful villain in the world. After the celebration, she carried on defeating all the villains and kept on having the best time of her life. The end. Wow, what an exciting story. This story is by Jatine. There was a brand new apartment built in a huge area in the suburbs of London. It was located in the surroundings of town centre. The roads were busy and overcrowded. The entrance of the apartment had a faulty system and was accessible to any random person. Surprisingly, there was neither CCTV nor a reception office. Hence, there was absolutely no security for these flats. Our main character, John, who was a fair and young lad, recently moved to this apartment. John was a well-behaved and kind-hearted boy with attractive eyes. He had an exceptional talent that he could see the next day's future. John lived with his parents and ordered a big TV for his new flat. He got a message from Amazon that his TV was delivered, and he went to the lobby to collect it. He was puzzled to know that the parcel was missing. He explored all the other areas of the apartment. He noticed that people from the other flats were also searching for this package. He was perplexed to know that the packages were stolen by a thief. He was very disappointed and angry to know this. John's parents spent a huge amount of money to buy his favourite TV. John explained the whole story and wanted to do something about this issue. He, along with his parents, met all the flat members to solve this problem. He revealed his talent and shared his past achievements with all of them. Everyone was happy and agreed with John to catch the thief. John looked into the next day's future and prepared them all. But finally, a serious plot was sketched with the help of the local police. Next day, at 12:30 p.m, police and the flat members assembled and planned to hide beside the pool from where they could keep an eye on the entrance door. Around 1 p.m, a stranger tried to access the door and got into the lobby area. John and others kept observing this intruder while he was collecting the packages into a huge bag. Then police decided to attack him and were successful in catching him. Police took him to the station and identified him as the most wanted thief. All the flat members and the police congratulated and thanked John for helping them to catch the thief. John became very famous in the city for his talent and appeared in the newspaper very often. So this story is unusual because it's actually written in the first person instead of in the third person like all the others. So just have a listen and hear how Casper has written his story. I want to tell you a story, but for now I'll only tell the beginning. Okay, good. So let me start. It was a nice hot Australian day. It was like over 50 degrees Celsius and I just came back from school. The school was built by an English charity. If you don't know, I'm 20 years old, I have brown skin, rough dark hair, and my name is Mark. Anyway, back to the story. I was at home drinking some Coca-Cola when I said to Dad, "Dad, I'm bored staying in Australia. I want to explore the world. I want to go to Peru." "But son," replied Dad. I know, I said. "My mum died in Peru, but that's because she went to the Brazilian side of the Amazon. She didn't stay in Peru." Then the doorbell rang. "Can you open it, son?" said Dad. "All right," I said. When I opened the door, no one was there. Then a flash of light tingled like a falling star. "What's that?" I asked myself. Then I got teleported and I disappeared. I'll tell you the rest next time. Bye-bye. Hi, good that you came back. Today I'm telling you the middle of my glorious story. I forgot to tell you that my power is travelling in time. Anyway, let's start the middle of the story. So, I teleported to the age of dinosaurs, and the worst was that my power stopped working. I was angry so much, but terrified at the same time. A dinosaur could have eaten me, but I survived. So I made an axe out of a stick, stone, and a piece of string. I tried to chop down some trees, like in Minecraft, but of course it didn't work. I tried to find something to eat, but the only thing I found was berries, and for me they were poison berries that I heavily poisoned myself with. I built a shelter to sleep in, but I still didn't know if a dinosaur will eat me in my sleep. Then something weird again sparkled in the sky. "Not this again," I said, but suddenly I think a girl version of me, Girl Mark, came and rescued me. Welcome to the end of my beautiful story. Do you remember the middle? Great, so let's start. Me and Girl Mark teleported out of the dino ages and back to my Australian home. I thanked Girl Mark and went back home. There is only one question to this story. How did Girl Mark find me? And that's the end of that story that ends on a cliffhanger. So this is Fiona's story. Unbelievable Lucas. It was a blazing hot day with gentle breezes of wind. A young boy with smooth, soft skin that glowed as bright as the sun was exploring a theme park. The theme park was just along the coast of London, bordering the countryside. This extraordinary boy was called Lucas. He had a bald head as shiny as the moon, but was calm like the ocean waves. He was very peaceful and observant too, with a very kind heart. Lucas strolled through the theme park, which was as large as thousands of dinosaurs. It was full of spectacular rides, some like a bumpy car ride and others as smooth as silk. It was packed with trillions of people having the best time of their lives. Suddenly, Lucas came across a little boy that sat by himself, sobbing. Tears came rushing down his cheeks. Lucas asked, "What's wrong? Can I help you?" "I fractured my leg," replied the little boy. Lucas carefully wiped the boy's tears, and he took the boy's pain too. "My leg is fine now. I can't believe it," exclaimed the boy. It was then that Lucas realised he could do good deeds to make people happy. He couldn't wait to make more people joyful. A few days later, there was a sports competition at Lucas's school. Other schools were also going to participate in the competition. Lucas was part of a group of helpers who were welcoming other schools. All the schools looked excited and ecstatic, except for one. All the people from the school who weren't excited or ecstatic marched through the front gate. They were all marching in unison. It seemed like they were forced to march like that, and that they were all terrified. Following them came a tall, pale man wearing black clothes like the night sky from head to toe. As soon as he entered, the hall went silent. Lucas curiously asked one of the marching students why they were marching like that, looking so miserable. He found out the tall and pale man was the head teacher of the distressed school. He was the reason that all the pupils were frightened. Lucas went directly to the head teacher and talked to him about how being angry and strict was not a good thing. Lucas explained that this was making the head teacher's students sad. The head teacher promised that he would try to control his anger. Lucas shook hands with the head teacher and took his anger away. Hopefully his powers would, and the head teacher would stay calm. After the competition finished, all the schools left feeling proud and confident, even the school that came looking depressed. Lucas spoke to the head teacher one last time and shook hands with him. But this time, Lucas felt no anger coming from the head teacher. The head teacher was funny, friendly, tranquil, and now every time anyone would see him, he would have a warm and welcoming smile on his face, just like Mr. Kerbal. Lucas and the head teacher had been getting on so well that the head teacher offered Lucas a place at his school. Lucas felt overwhelmed and agreed to join the now incredibly happy school. What adventures were in store for Lucas next? Okay everyone, I hope that you enjoyed hearing all of those stories. I loved reading them for that must have been the 4th or 5th time that I've read them all. They're so interesting how everyone came up with such different stuff. For today's lesson, now that we're moving on to an actual lesson, after we've had a bit of a break, just relaxing and listening to some stories, we're going to be thinking about what is the main message or the main theme of a story that we have just read or heard. What do we mean by main message of a story? Not every story has a message, but most stories have some sort of ideas in them that are the key things that you would think about after you've read them. So let's take, for example, the story that we just read by Fiona. What did it make me think? What messages did I take away from that story? I can think of a few things. For example, it made me think about the fact that it's so much nicer in life to be a positive person with positive emotions than negative emotions. So, as much as we can, we should try to be kind and friendly and positive instead of being angry and strict and mean and sad. Obviously, we can't always control how we feel. Sometimes things do make us sad, like the little boy who fractured his leg. But what is amazing is that we always have a power to make other people feel better. In this story, the main character, the boy, he has a magical power to take away people's pain and take away people's bad feelings. But when you think about it, it's actually quite easy to do that even if you don't have a special power. Like if someone's feeling sad, going over to them and giving them a hug or telling them that you hope they feel better soon can actually give them a positive feeling when they're feeling negative. So what is the main message or theme in Fiona's story? I would say that I think the main message is that we should always be kind and compassionate to the people around us so that we can inspire and motivate everyone to have positive feelings and emotions as much as possible. A second message could be that we all have the power within us to make other people feel good. For your task today, what I'm going to ask you to do is to think back to the story of Evie in the jungle. Just like Pooja's story, Evie in the jungle has a lot of different themes in it and some ideas that it might have made you think about. Can you think, what do you think one of the main messages or main themes in Evie in the Jungle is? What did it teach you about the world, about life, or about people? In a second, on the screen, you're going to see the date and LI. I want you to write down the date and LI, and then I want you to complete the task, which is to write what do you think the main message or the main theme of Evie in the Jungle was. You don't have to write a lot of sentences, just 2 to 3 sentences would be enough. But if you have a lot to say, I would love to hear your thoughts. So here is your date and LI. If you are in the Jade or the Indigo group, you do not need to do this, so you can go now and move on to your writing lesson. So I repeat, Jade and Indigo groups or Amber groups, you do not need to do this. Your lesson is now finished. This is just for everybody else to write down the date and the LI for the task. Hopefully now you should have written the date and the LI. If you haven't, go back to the date and the LI and write it down. But once you've done that, you can pause the video here and complete your task, writing what you think the main message or the theme was of Evie in the Jungle. Start your sentence with, I think the main message of Evie in the Jungle is... Pause the video now if you need to write down your sentence starter. And don't forget to take a picture of your work and email it in for us to see.